Hey, 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 Cindy Gould here from Create Your Victorious Life, and welcome back to the Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV apps on your respective app stores, whether it's iOS or Android devices. While you download, please make sure you give us a stellar, oh so very cool and amazing rating, please, and a comment. That app is totally free. We love that word. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku TV sticks, smart TVs 2016 and forward. And today, oh my goodness, we have tried repeatedly to be able to connect for our schedules and the stars and the comets to align. So we get to be on this today together. My dear precious friend, Dr. Paul Kellogg, is here today. And you are going to want to grab a notebook if you don't already have one. You are going to want to have a pen available because he has, yes, me too. For me, it's like a master class, but he has so much wisdom. And, you know, he's had a career that spanned over 50 years internationally acclaimed and practical intuitive, which is really interesting if you think of those words together. He takes a common sense approach to spiritual forces, breaks it down to the ridiculous. So if you're a third or fourth grader, you can understand it. He doesn't get all airy and woo-woo and all of that. He's very practical about it, which is so great because then you can connect to it with your spirit. During his career, holy smack. I mean, I've been doing this show for almost a year and a half. He's been on hundreds and hundreds of radio shows, TV stations, TV shows, interviewed by newspapers all over the world, from one end of the planet to the other. He's conducted workshops, webinars. We got to meet because of this really fun platform that we're on, ENTV. And because of that, he said yes and dove in with his beautiful wife, Susan, and his spectacular daughter, Sandra. And I dove in, and a bunch of our friends did, and we just became this big family. So without further ado, yay! Welcome, Dr. Paul Kellogg.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. Wow, that was an introduction there, which really just said, "Oh, this guy's lived a life for quite a while now."
Well, let's start with where your roots were, if you want. That's a perfect segue.
Yeah.
You know, I always ask everybody, as I did in the Victory Network on my Facebook group, and was basically, how have you created? I mean, with it, just your career's been the 50 years, right? But you have this amazing family that you've created and sustained with your wife and with your children and your grands. And how have you created so much beautiful victory in your life? And how, I'm going to start differently today. How did growing up in the community and the environment and the family, the farm life that you did, how did that set that foundation for you?
Yeah, you told me you were going to ask that question, when we were touching base on this before. And I said, what is victory? And so I actually looked it up in the dictionary, Cindy. And of course, one of the obvious answers is it's, overcoming a foe and defeat, all those kinds of blah, 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 right? But then if you really dive into it, it talks about accomplishment and achievement, ascendancy, mastery. Yeah. And boy, do I resonate with those words. As you know, one of my mantras is rise to excellence. And I think that is the feeling of victory for me. Being victorious is about moving forward, progressing, in the midst of the challenges and the things that can be, holding us back, or outright we think of that as the adversity or enemy in our lives and so on. So to me, when I look at my whole life, Cindy, the whole entire 24/7, decades plus of years, it's all one giant victory. Because I just see everything as something that's helped me to learn and grow and get better the next day. Right. And even as a small child, I was very aware of what was happening for me in relationship to the world around me. Did I feel great on my tricycle? Did I like the little gun holster set and cowboy hat that I was wearing when I was 4 years old? Was it something that made me feel like I could do things and accomplish and grow? And so, yeah, it all really started with just this awareness that I could choose and be in command, even at a young age. How far do I want to stand away from the target when I shoot my bow and arrow? Let's try another 2 steps back. And so that gave me a lot of foundation, I think, of just being myself. And as you said, on the farmland, it was a very small farm. It was kind of an avocational thing. My father we lived in a small town outside of Washington, D.C. He worked for the government. And so it was a very heady job. He was in the financial sector of the government. And we bought a small farm so he could have some things to do with not just his head, but with his heart. So we had a couple cows and raised a couple calves, had chickens. And that was a victorious scenario all the way around. I loved milking the cow. I loved seeing how I could get all the milk in the bucket and take it up to my mother to sort the cream from the milk without spilling one single drop. That was the goal, and when I did it, just felt so fulfilled. So, that life experience gives you a lot of chance to win.
Wow. You know what you just said was so profound, and I bet you didn't even realize it. As I see, I loved milking the cow. I loved squeezing every drop into the bucket and getting it up to my mother without losing one drop. Now, I think I love milking my life. I love squeezing every single thing out of my life without losing one drop and taking it right up to God's feet and saying,
Yep.
let's go. Right?
Yep.
That is amazing. You don't even realize you drop gold all the time. It's just like, but what I love. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say, and that's just, I mean, you do it well too, Cindy. And that's just when we share our experiences without trying to prove anything or compete with philosophies or ideas or wordings, about this or that. If we just share our experiences, there's always going to be victory in that. There's always going to be a sense of wisdom because you're just sharing what's been real to you. And there are going to be people that buy that. There are going to be people that like the words that we talk about today. There are going to be people that slough it off and say, "Oh, those guys are weird," or what. But that's the point: is that I can't be all things to all people, but I can sure be things to the people that I know need to connect with me and what I have to say.
Right, and as long as we're walking in our honor and integrity to what we know, for me, you've heard me say this, being in alignment with my assignment, as long as I walk in that, then I know it's good. Something you said earlier also really struck me because I have yet to hear people articulate what you said other than myself. And I've done it in a way, sometimes depending upon the crowd, I've been careful with the words I've said.
Yeah.
You said as a small child, you were very very aware of what was going on around you. And twice you said about your feelings. How does that feel to me? Do I need to take a few steps back? All of that as a child. I felt the same way. I was so aware, and I was aware that everything was alive. Like everything had a frequency to it, right? Everything, from the trees to the chair to, everything,
Right.
You could dial into something. And I was so aware of that. And how does that chair make me feel? How does mom's homemade bread taste? How does that make me feel? Or whatever it is. And I love that. So do you remember maybe a specific situation as a child where you were able to tap into that awareness and just know, take a left, take a right, something that really blessed you or benefited you in a way, or kept you safe or protected you?
Well, number one, to preface that, I feel, and with my kids, my wife and I have 5 children, and with the grandchildren, I think all of us have that childlike part that is naturally sensitive or intuitive, if you will. We sense and feel and pick up things. Later on, we might describe it as our gut instinct or ESP. I mean, there's so many different ways to connect with that God's voice There's so many different ways to connect that, but we're all naturally sensitive. And whatever you call that, some people use the word psychic. Well, if you really dumb that down and look back at the definition of the word psyche means breath of God or soul or spirit. So when a person is psychic, really are, they're just being themselves. They're connecting and being who they really are naturally inside. And so that childlike part has no intellect that says, I have to say it this way, or I ignore my feelings, or I ignore my awareness because someone else told me I should do this or should do that, until we start to get programmed to do that.
Right.
By whatever it is, whatever the outside influences are, whether it's the parents, it's the school, it's the church, where they start to tell you that this is the way you define that. So the freedom as parents, as much as we can allow the child as they grow up to be themselves and to resonate and follow the path that they're sensing, doing the best we can to help them not do harm to themselves or be destructive and so on, which is the challenge in itself. That way that child feels the freedom to explore, to grow, and to have the adventures. So I think in general, to go back now, that was a long preface, but to go back now to what I was saying about my childhood, my parents generally put that framework and container around for me. I 8, 9, 10 years old, I was running the barnyard during the day. I was in charge of the grain. I was in charge of milking the cow. I was in charge of throwing manure out the side window to clean the stalls and put fresh hay down. I built the hay forts. That was my thing, to do. My father, of course, would come home and would do the more intricate things or the more heavier things that I couldn't do. But there was freedom there as a child to do that. And so I think that allowed me to explore the world of these intuitive things that we talk about, and spirituality and so on.
I think with that same freedom, it gave you I think almost permission that you didn't even know you would need later. Imagine that this wild imagination, and we could use it to create anything. We can create at the speed of thought. Our thoughts really do turn into things, right? And so it's so important that we govern our thoughts. And as parents and as grandparents, as both of you we are, that freedom is important. Freedom also equals, I think, trust. It gives you a broader brush with your curiosity, because then you're curious, like, oh, how does that work? Oh, how does this, oh my gosh, what is that? All of those types of things. And also, like you said before, you were in the barn doing your thing and, all that stuff, which is so great to even think of. But at the same time, you were creating in your brain all these fun, right? Because you're outside. So you're going to build stuff, do all the things, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The uniqueness of when somebody's willing to suck in the fear, suck it up, and then take that step forward, no matter what. It's amazing how much creativity there is to parlay into anybody that's. And I was an athlete when I was a kid. I was a cross country runner and a really good baseball player, and there were constantly things that I had to evaluate or adjust to move forward and accomplish whatever it is. Like on the baseball team, whatever it was, if a guy could hit my fastball, I had to figure out a way. Okay, so how do I pitch this guy, because he always does this?
Right.
So you're constantly looking at that creative way. And, Cindy, freedom, you've heard me talk about 5 points that I kind of govern my life and I share in lectures and so on. And those 5 points are, number one, I am energy. However, what do you want to say? I'm a soul, life force, however you call that. And there's lots of nuances to that. Number two, I'm here to learn and grow. However you define it from your culture, religion, the bottom line is planet Earth's a great school. It's a big, giant university. You learn and grow, you figure things out. It helps you be of service. It helps you do something better the next time. Number three, I have a life purpose. There's a reason. There's a connection. As you say, there's an alignment with the assignment, and it's important to figure that out. And number four, I have guidance. Again, whatever you call that, whether it's God or spirit or the universe or spiritual guides, or however you relate to that. Native Americans talk about the ancestors who back the tribe, and all those things. So we have that to tune into and help us. And the last one is freedom. I am free. I can choose to do what it is. Now, I may have to pay the consequences in society if I choose to do certain things, but I'm free to choose. I can go do that. So that ability to shift and adjust is so powerful and so important. And I think that's where a lot of people abdicate themselves from their lives, is they forget that they're free to change or to do something, or they won't allow that to happen because they're beholden to something outside of themselves, the outer voices, the outer loyalties, if you will, to things that don't serve them.
Right. Or even what I would say, and I was on a Zoom earlier today, and we were just talking about the rules we make. Right. And we have so many rules that we make, and most of those rules are predicated on other people's performance, not on yours. Right.
That's right.
And so what do? And you pick, well, you have a certain expectation, but that other person has to deliver in order for that to happen. And are you going to be happy or mad because they didn't? Well, what a dumb rule is that? It's like, and it's so interesting, and it is in alignment with everything you just said. Also, Eduardo, our producer, was a professional baseball player. You guys are going to have fun chatting. Yep.
We got to chat. Yes.
You're going to have to chat.
I didn't quite make it that far, but we'll follow and still love it.
You're going to love it to chat. And the reason that he started this was during COVID. He found that there are a lot of professional athletes, starting with baseball and expanding out, that have mental health challenges because of the expectations that are placed on them for performance, right? And not living and embracing the 5 things basically that you just shared. And so he started on an Apple platform, something different. And now this is what it is. It's just fabulous. So I love the 5 things that you shared because they're so specific. And you and I know that words are creative containers of energy. And so when you speak out loud, I am, fill in the blank, and what you've spoken out loud, each, I love even the I have guidance. I have a life purpose, yes. How, and I know this is such a broad question for such a big career that you've had, but for the many things that you've done, how have you worked with people to really help them hone in on the fact, or help them to figure out what their life purpose is?
Yeah. So in the classes and workshops and consultations that we do, but also in the creating this as a lifestyle.
Yes.
Because so many people, they go to the seminar, they go to the workshop, it jazzes them up, they feel great. Then when they get back to the office or back to the chaos in the family that they were able to get a retreat from, it slowly dulls back. And so one of my top goals as I grew in life was to be able to find ways to maintain it, to help it. So that could be a system of prayer, if you're on that bent, or a system of meditation or yoga classes or whatever, where you create a way to stay in that mode no matter what. One of the things that is my continuing goal or aspiration is to be able to rise up in that, to go deeper with it, to find a deeper connection to that guidance than I had yesterday. So it's always being more open to growing and learning. And so that's the first thing to help people with, is that when they start to understand that I'm energy, I am a soul. I don't have a soul somewhere that I have to go get. I am it. I have a physical body that holds me or anchors me into this great school. And when I pass on, there really is no death. You can't create or destroy energy. All you do is change its form. So whether you say you go back to God or you go back to the universe or you're a spiritual being out there or the one of the entities in Star Trek that's out there, whatever you believe, there's that awareness. So that intelligent life force is very strong. And then number two, it's always going to have direction, no matter what. It's going to have a direction. So just like the little one-celled, amoebas,
Yes.
scientific. I mean, you're in neuroscience and aware of some of those scientific ideas. That amoeba is constantly pushing itself. I'll do it this way. It's constantly pushing an arm out, and then pretty soon the rest of the body flows and it's constantly exploring. So we move by desire. Whatever is engaging our awareness, we're going to move towards that. So if you think back as a child, that small child learning to crawl is going to be fascinated by the bug on the floor.
Yeah.
And they're going to go get it because they have this sense of fascination and desire. So when we put a sense of our goals and our wants and needs towards that desire to move, I want this in my life. I want a better relationship. I need to be able to travel, to explore and grow. That creates that purpose. And then when you attach people to that, if you're in the people business as a coach or whatever, now it becomes even stronger because not only you're moving by your desire, but the desire also includes helping other people.
Right.
And that gives you the sense of, I want to help people this way. I want to impart this message and so on. So it's helping people dive back into what fascinates you. What are you passionate about? What
Right.
will you get up in the morning at 5 a.m. rather than 6 a.m.?
Right.
That tells you what your purpose is about because it's going to be, I got to, before I pass it back to you, I got to tell you, Jerry Seinfeld, the famous comedian,
Yes.
he
Yes.
was the commencement speaker at Duke University this past May. And he was talking about this. He said, forget purpose, forget trying to find your passion, all that. I want to suggest you find what fascinates you.
Ah.
Because that will tell you a direction that you really, truly need to go. I love that statement.
I love that. I'm writing it down. I'll go look it up too. That's cool.
So there's a
Well,
lot to unpack there,
there
but
is.
it starts out with me just being sincere and honest about this is what I really want. When
Right.
I say that, purpose begins to form out of that.
100%. And what is interesting, both of us being coaches and both of us being in that people business, and is we get to see even from ourselves because our heart's wounds often create blind spots, and so then we get to see other people's blind spots where a lot of people don't even dare. Like I'm asking this to our audience now or in the future, whenever you get to see this, when was the last time that you actually said out loud what you really wanted, where you actually knew what you wanted, so you had words to speak and not what other people expected of you, what you were brought up to believe or anything else. And to your point, and Jerry Seinfeld's, when have you ever looked at things as fascinating? Sometimes people get so much in that autopilot mode, right? And then we get the kids up, we do all the things and then get them to school and do all of that, right? And then get home and do it all again. When have you ever just paused a second and said, holy smack, that's cool? And then just allowed your heart and your brain to just go crazy. Like, oh, I could do this, I could do that. One of our friends, Crystal Ray, she was sharing with me that her son is in school. Now, it's so cool what he wants to do. So he's in biochemistry, something, something, something. But what he really wants to invent is some kind of like neon paints and stuff for the road for lines so people can see them no matter what the weather. And
Yeah.
having grown up partially in Alaska, that they did,
Yeah.
I just think to myself, how fascinating is that? Like, how cool, right? Is that? Or think back to when we were kids and what was on TV. Like, I mean, heck, Desi and Lucy, who were married legitimately at the time, didn't even sleep in the same bed. They slept in twin beds, right? Or Mary Tyler Moore and Dick Van Dyke. And now you think about what's going on now in the world on TV, but just all of, well, if you just saw Wicked, all of that set was built so they felt like they were present. And
That's
it
right.
was like real. It wasn't like all just computer animated stuff. And they were all with these, they were literally flying around and singing at the same time and doing all the stuff and, within that. And I think all of that came from people who were fascinated by certain things. So what a great way for us to be having this conversation with a few more weeks left of 2024,
Right.
because I want to invite whoever's watching now or in the future, I want to invite you just to sink into that in your heart. Like when you were a child and you were dancing around the farm and slinging the manure and doing all the things, your mind was still, creating and inventing and doing. And so I want to invite all of you to just sink back into a time where you allowed yourself to dream and to be fascinated by something, right? And then turn it up a notch. Like what Paul said about getting more connected with God, I would say, and with your
Yeah.
intuition and with all of that in every meditation, in every prayer time and everything, just turn it up, turn it up. Do the same thing with what jazzes you. Turn that sucker up. Whatever your dream is, dream bigger because you're capable of pulling it off. Like no matter what you dream, you can do it. No matter what it is,
I
right?
mean, Cindy, I mean, you're putting some muscle to what we're talking about here because the 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 thing that happens to people the most is that they evaluate or self-edit as they go through this.
Yep.
So they'll decide what they want based on how much money they have in the bank. They'll
Right.
decide what they want based on what their family might say. So
Mhm.
so that has to be put aside because I have to be able to just without hindrance,
Right.
without the chains and the leashes, be able to say, this is me. Because actually, when I say what I want, I'm saying this is me.
Right.
This is my energy. This is my passion and goal for moving forward. And they'll do it because everybody wants you to be a part of their lives.
Uh-huh.
That there's a connection, there's a relationship. If I
Mhm.
change, it's possible that I'm going to make other people uncomfortable around me.
Mhm.
But if I don't make that change,
Right.
I am only giving half of me to that relationship. I'm not being really true to the relationship because I'm not being true to myself. Shakespeare said it. To thine own self be true. And then
Yes.
it follows as the night does the day. You can't be false to anyone. So
Mm.
if I am taking care, so dumbing it down, if I take care of myself, I can take care of other people. If I'm sick in bed, it's harder for me to help other people.
Right.
So that boils down to that. And your point about dream bigger, I had a chance to interview a gentleman who's now very famous. His name's Charlie Rocket. He founded the Dream Machine, which
Ah,
helps kids that are terminally ill go on their dream vacation or whatever that is and take the family. It's amazing. It's a beautiful piece of work. But he failed many times early in his life. And everybody would say he's delusional. But he would always say, well, no, I failed, but that's a win for me because now I'm going to go try this.
yep.
And that's what his suggestion is. And I've begun to adopt that personally. What is delusional that everybody else would say, Paul, you're crazy.
Right.
You're crazy about doing that.
Hey.
What is it? Because if they're saying that, there must be something there, or they would just ignore it.
100%.
If they want to have a conversation about it, there must be something in there. And that's a sign that you're probably on the right track to achieving something victorious for you in your life.
Yes. You know what's so cool? One of the things you said, so many things there. One of them was, you can only give part of yourself if you're sick in bed. Well, how do you get sick in bed? Inauthenticity. 100%. And
Yep.
because that gives you bitter, angry, all of it. And it's proven now. It used to be if you were to say, panel, just ask a bunch, just a
Yeah.
random, what's most important to you? Love, 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 love. Now, Gary Brecka, I think, was the one who did a study. Maybe it wasn't Gary, but I know I've heard it from Gary, Dr.
Yeah.
Gary Brecka. And he said that it's 400% higher. Authenticity is
Yeah.
what really is the most important thing for people to thrive, for people to be their best. And when you live under all of that, what you were describing, whether it's I don't have enough money in the bank, so let's not even consider that, or wait, that's against my fill in the blank, and all of the things, then what happens? You do not complete what you really came here with your heart's desire to complete. You shut it off. And
That's
there's a
right.
study that says 98% of the people that come to this planet, 98% of the people, they don't accomplish or create the life of their wildest dreams because of fear, because of
That's
that.
it.
Yeah, because of their fear. And so here's the thing too, I would say, don't worry about the how. Just worry about what do you want? Great. The house is going to show up for you all the way, because when you're in alignment, that it's like playing a big game of Candyland. It is if you played
Right.
that with your children or your grand, because you're going to hit the plums and then you're going to get them. And then you're going to go over here and you're going to get a slide to something cooler that's going to propel you even quicker. And to your point also about, you know, um, the failing piece of it. Well, I know many, probably more statistics or people than I do with this, but even Kentucky Fried Chicken, Colonel Sanders was turned down 1,009 times for his recipe, and what was he, 68 when he
Yeah.
launched it and having it? And look at it, we all eat it. It's all been there. There's that. There's so many people. The gal that wrote Harry Potter, same,
Yep.
all of that. Walt
Living
Disney.
in a car.
Yes, yes, all of these people, but they were determined. I would say that they made sure that they leveled up every time that they met with an opportunity where they could take a plot twist and take a nosedive,
Right.
or they could just level up. So when you said that earlier, because that sings to me. So every day, every way, all the time, you try to, I know you because you have this stellar level of excellence. So you try to not just bring your best self, but to connect to the highest possible frequency that you can get to. Is that correct?
Yeah. And that's a journey. It's not a result
Right,
because there's no end to it.
right.
For me, I
Mhm.
mean, there's a giant universe out there, to explore. I mean, it's getting bigger. Science is finding it bigger and bigger and broader and more dynamic than we can ever imagine. It's been around for 13, 14 billion years in this little phase of it, right? And so there's just an incredible amount to aspire to. And so I think and that's a very humble kind of feeling for me, is
Mhm.
that means that I'm not greater and I don't try to be greater and I'm not lesser than anyone else. I'm just being me.
That-
And look at it. There's only one me. There's only
That's
one you.
that's
So
right.
we're perfect as we are. And
Yeah,
we're perfect for what we came to do because nobody else can do it quite the way that I do it. And so
exactly.
and so the other thing too is that authenticity.
Mhm.
Another way to say that might help people be a little bit, because sometimes in these interviews we've been doing, when you talk about authenticity, there's kind of a word that, authentic, being authentic. But really a part of that is just being
Right.
honest with myself.
Yep.
This is what I want. This is what I'm fearful about. This is what this is. And just being, owning where I am at the moment. They
Right.
say that people who have the easiest time, for example, losing weight or
Mhm.
quitting smoking or changing a habit, are people who accept that they have the habit.
Ha.
If they're denying it, they're avoiding that. Here's where I am right now. This is me. This is what I've done to this point. Great. I'm learning. I'm growing. Okay, now I don't want that. I want this.
Right.
Now they're, instead of trying to get away from something,
Right.
they're actually moving towards something.
Right.
The great Eduardo loved this. The great Satchel Paige said, "Don't look back. You might find something that's gaining on you. Keep that eye moving forward." And then when you do that, Cindy, this is another point in terms of if I value my experiences as a growth opportunity, a lesson is there. Even the tough times, even the mistakes or failures that I happen, they become lessons and they become priceless because it helps me to move forward. Just like that guy, Charlie Rocket, became very successful because he used everything he did to grow and step up with. And then when so that fourth point of I have guidance, when I have that kind of intention, it's magnetic. I start to
100%.
unconsciously attract the help that will help me get there.
Yes.
There's an old saying in my church when I was growing up little, the Lord helps those who help themselves. I have to show up. I
Right.
can't just sit on the couch and, wait for something to pick me up and take me over into the next room. I've got to go walk out the door.
Yep.
So, there's that kind of inspiration of if I'm helping myself, other people will rally to help me because they sense that there's a goodness in what I'm aspiring to.
100%. And it really boils down to, as you know, our brain is magnetic, our mind, our heart is electric, our heart is magnetic. And so when you have the mind heart coherence, what you're pumping out and magnetizing back to you, so it's everything. And so what happens, and you know this, to your point of what we were talking about earlier, if you're not true to yourself, if you're not honest, like really honest, there's this confusion that's going on, and your frequency is going to build evidence back to you. That's why some of you might have chaos. That's why some of you might have constant sadness because you're feeling sad because you're not honoring you. You're not doing what you know you came here to do. And those are the little things that, again, that awareness that you started out our conversation with, that to me has been one of the biggest benefits of me recognizing that awareness as a child, because I could see, okay, and it's like what you said. It took a whole lot of groceries to get a certain way, right? And then you're like, okay, I don't want my body that way. I'm going to change my groceries. I want it to be here. In order to be here, these are the things that need to happen. And some of you, it might be to protect that precious energy. I am energy, and we all vibrate at a frequency. Well, how are we fueling that energy? How are we taking care of that? Or all the other things, within the top 5. Freedom is a really powerful word to me. We do live here in the US. I'm so grateful to all of the folks that have fought for that freedom that we get to enjoy here. And both you and I have had the blessing of traveling globally and been in different places where it's not something, but there's nothing worse than not being free in here.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
So what would you say? So somebody comes to you, they watch this, they they come to the Empowered Soul Network on Facebook, they come to one of your events, and they're just conflicted. Like, what would be something that maybe you could teach here that somebody could just be like, okay, just so they could just.
Yeah. So first, number one is in everything that we do in Empowered Soul Network, we have a masterclass circle that we do. I can put the links into the show for you with all that. But with the number one thing that I am finding that everybody, whether they're a newer searcher or they're actually a seasoned coach or leader or practitioner, is the feeling of being alone inside of all that. As leaders, we get so involved with people, we forget to step back and connect and elevate ourselves with our peers and people that get us where we are.
Right.
So we're creating communities to help people. That's what I call rise to excellence and stay at that high to high, rather than having these big dips, in life where you just get drained because you're helping people. Right. You're able to stay high. And if the challenge is there, Cindy, it doesn't dip down as much. It stays more of like a flowing river.
Right.
So that's what we want to help people with, is to stay up high like that. And I'll show you just a real simplistic technique to remind you of who you are and what you do. So you can try this. I don't know if I think you've seen this before. So shake your hands like this. Everybody can try this at home. And put your hands about 2 inches apart with your fingers very relaxed.
Mm.
Take a real deep breath in, kind of loosen your shoulders up a little bit. Very gently let your hands move in and out from each other.
Mm. So fun.
And Cindy, how would you describe what you feel or sense in or between your hands?
I would just say really like sparkly.
Yeah, it's kind of like for me, it's always feels a little tingly or magnetic,
Yep.
like pushing. Do you feel that?
Yep.
Some people feel it as a warmth or heat. That's your energy.
Yep.
That's that heat, and that's that kind of electromagneticness. It goes through our nervous systems, and whole neuroscience energy is all about that. But and we do, so that's healing energy also. When people do laying on of hands or Reiki or some of those kinds of, there's just that channeling of that energy through. And
Mhm.
that's what the universal energies are. That's what, to me, that's what God is all. It's energy, it's force, it's life force, and that flows through all the time. You can actually see that. We do techniques where you can see the glow, the aura, if you will, the countenance that people would see around the Master Jesus, and so on. That glow of who we really are. And so we do practical techniques to help people begin to be aware of their energy and the caliber of that energy. Is that energy and that sensitivity, that energy is sensitive. We feel each other's energy, their frequency. So learning to be aware of that. But just that right there, if you're having trouble during the day, stop, take a deep breath, and just go back to I am energy. Just feel it, because it takes you away for just a moment from being that.
Yep.
And then there's lots of things you can do with your energy that we instruct people how to do. So that's just a real simple version
I love it.
of all kinds of different techniques to become masterful of that energy. And for me, that is the key to rising, is finding ways to become more masterful of that frequency. Because
Yes.
what I put out is what I'm going to get back. The laws of attraction are not a linear thing. It's a sphere. And so if I'm putting out negativity, I'm going to start magnetizing that kind of stuff
Right.
I surround myself with. If I put out that more positive energy, I've never seen it fail, ever. If somebody is more positive and they maintain that, eventually something's going to happen that will launch them forward into what they want.
100%. I love that. And I know, I joke around sometimes with people, but when you wake up in the morning, and for me, I have a process. I have a glass of water. I tank it. The first thoughts in my mind are about what I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
The fact, all of that. But it creates a foundation for my day. And I know that, I saw something the other day and I thought it was so smart. She was talking about, tripping, like her kids arguing in the morning or hitting her toe against the stool in the kitchen or something, or something like that. And then, you're like, or whatever. She said, instead, what she does is she says, wow, praise God, hallelujah. That's so awesome. Right. But what it does is it keeps you in that frequency that you were talking about. Instead of having those dips and those things, it's the same thing. I
Yeah.
see the same thing, like with the difference to me between blessings
Yeah.
and between miracles. Because people, when you think of the word miracle, I'm not negating anybody in this
Yeah.
at all, but it implies that you had an emergency for that to happen. But when you live in a constant state of blessing,
Yeah.
you don't have the dips, like you said. And the way that I see that for my own life, that I've been able to create some consistency like that, is really through gratitude.
Yeah.
Well, for you, how does that play in your life?
Well, I mean, again, to me, it goes back to that energy of awareness. that for me, a blessing is me acknowledging the joy and the goodness and the
Right.
positive energy of what
Right.
I'm endeavoring to do, even if I'm having challenges.
Right.
That's a blessing because
Right.
that helps me grow. That helps
Yes.
me learn. So bring it on,
Yes.
and then what happens is in victory, in victory, it starts to become less of a fight and
Right.
more of a journey of adventure. When I
Yes.
was running cross country, you're by yourself at cross country, 2.5 miles through the woods, up and down the hills, over the river, blah, blah, blah. And you're by yourself and you have to learn to pace. If I'm trying so hard to beat the next guy or the guy behind me or stay ahead, I start to lose the joy of just running. If
Right.
I'm doing my best and being, there's a good chance that I can cross the finish line and have the quote outer win, but just the joy of the run is the feeling of the victory for me. So that's the experience of that to me. That attitude I wanted to mention because we talked about at the very beginning, practical intuition.
Yes.
Well, that energy, when I am more aware of that sensitivity starts to work for me as a
Yes.
tool to help me gather information in that
Yes.
frequency kind of style rather than it working against me where I pick up everybody else's stuff. I think that that's me and it's really other people's energies that I'm walking through and walking around with. So
Yes.
there's a lot of things that we can do to help people to learn to trust that inner sensitivity, that inner awareness, which
Mm.
to me, to work with your words in the way, that's the way God or spirit or the universe speaks to us through. It's
Right.
not an intellectual conversation. It's the still small voice.
Yes.
It's the energy of awareness, and we all have that. And
Right.
that's another thing that I find that people come to us with is they want to become more masterful of that intuitive nature of life. They want to learn to understand how they personally do it because there's different ways that people will process that intuitive nature. They may see it, they may auditorily hear it, they may have a sense of knowingness, they may
Right.
just feel the vibes of it. But all those things can help us to become really again, I go back to that's where the victory lies.
It
It's just
does.
becoming a better runner.
Yeah.
Throwing the ball, learning where to put the strike, learning where to put the ball, help them say, yeah,
Right.
there's more
Well,
to all that baseball
yeah.
stuff there. Yeah.
And you know what's so cool about that too is when you start to know that, like you said, you're already victorious. You've already
Yeah.
won. So when you come from a place of I'm the only Paul,
Yeah.
and I've already won, and you're coming from victory instead of like you said, striving, trying to beat the guy or whatever, that's when you can actually be so much more aware because you don't have all those other filters going off, like I have to do this and I have to live by these rules and this and that and all that stuff. You you will naturally when you rise to being your highest self, when you rise to being that. And what's interesting is I love what you said that your spirit and your intuition is gathering information. That's so powerful.
Even if we don't think it is, even if
Right.
we don't think it is, we're sensitive, we're aware of all that. You and I could be feeling somebody really resonating and thinking about this and wishing that they could change this or that. We could be feeling that right now.
Right.
That's how powerful it is. A person 12,000 miles on the other side of the world, because you said it earlier, thoughts are almost like things
There's
and they're
things.
instant.
Yep.
So that energy can travel, let's get wild and cosmic about it. It can travel at the speed of light. Just
100%.
say it. So we can
100%.
pick that stuff up.
That's right. That's right. And you know what's so wild to that point? I was thinking about a girlfriend I hadn't talked to. Golly, her child's already graduated from high school, and I knew her before she was even married. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's been a bazillion years. And I was thinking about her the other day. She lives in Hawaii. All of a sudden, my phone rings because I've had, and I'm like, what the heck? And she's like calling me. And it was so great. And she's, Cindy, it's just like we, have been talking every day. I said, yeah, because our spirits do know,
Yeah.
and instant things come back. And, or there'll be other times where I might, like if I had you and Susan on my heart to pray for you
Yeah.
or something,
Yeah.
and then you reach out and say, tell me something that's going on. And I'm like, oh yeah, great. I'm already on it, or vice versa. That you,
Yeah, the attunement can be phenomenal. I mean, just a real
Mhm.
quick story that was very poignant. A lot of you know that maybe listening Sandra Kellogg. She's a collaborator in the Empowered Soul Network. Me, Cindy's met her.
I love her.
When Susan was pregnant with Sandra, she was at a conference, a retreat, and one of her friends said, "Hey, Susan, what do you do?" And Susan blurts out April 2nd. Well, her due date was April 20th. And she just got covered with goosebumps and all that. And she had her way of connection and meditating on that, and just really felt like she needed to be very prepared for 3 weeks early. Well, she called me up, told me that, I was on a tour of workshops and things. And I decided kind of in the last week of April, say, you know what, I kind of need to just get back there. I trust Susan's instincts or intuitions about that. She happened to be in a workshop instructing it.
Right.
The evening of April 1st, things got done. She started going into labor at 11 p.m. April
Oh my
1st.
word.
Son was born on April 2nd the next day, 9 a.m. And
Oh,
the point of that is there's no way to logically say that. I was able to actually get through a snowstorm to get back to there. I was one of the few people in that transportation mode that got back. So I actually was able to be a part of the birth, which was always my policy to be there for my kids' births. And because I'd organized everything for April 20th. So there's no way to logically figure that out. But
right,
that's that intuitive side of life, putting us in the right place at the right time,
right,
so we can ease our adventure. We can
yeah,
ease the
yeah,
run that we're doing, down the track.
yeah.
So that's how it works. It's
I
a
love
tool to
that.
work for us.
Well, please tell everybody, we've got like a minute and a half left. Where
Yeah.
can people find you? What's the easiest way?
Yeah, well, the easiest way is Facebook, Empowered Soul Network. That's a Facebook group. It's a private group. People have to join it, but we've grown that to, closing in on 6,000 people now in the last few months, and just love it. So similar kinds of interviewing and sharing with people and having them connect at this level. So that's one of these. People can DM me if they want to know more about the workshops and consultation we do. We also have, and I can put this in the show notes or in the comments if you want. Out of that, we've created a mastermind circle. It's called Soul Powered Success
Mm,
Mastermind Circle. And
love it.
that's designed to help people who want to have a tribe of people to connect at this level,
Right.
practice those kinds of techniques where we can all connect together and do that. And that is for anyone that's searching, but also for people that are leaders that want to maintain that highest level of leadership that they can.
Love it. Love it. I'm so excited. You do not want to miss those opportunities. Again, Empowered Soul Network. Find the group, join it, send an invite. Please let Paul know that you saw him here. It'll be great. And I want to thank you all for being here today. You can find me on the Victory Network, which is on Facebook, or Cindy Gould. Please let me know that you were here also. And this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network, spanglishworld.ca. Please check it out for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it. And before we go, let me thank Dr. Paul Kellogg. I love you so much. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for being
much.
here today.
It was
So much
great, Cindy,
fun.
so much. Thank
Can't
you.
wait to have you back. Go out there and live it, everybody. Thank you. Happy holidays.